from trafficking to prison to business. He's made millions of dollars outside of prison walls. It's the Brian Calcott.
Like I said, it was the first time in my life that I felt inferior, and the only thing that these kids had on me in my mind was money. When I was in high school, I would go into New York City and I would buy weed from New York City, come back out, sell it to the rich kid. There was a mother that got caught with a joint 3 times. They sentenced her to 30 years.
What was it like when you first went in? And I'm sure it would have been chaotic in that.
Ever seen a guy just get fucking sliced like left and right with the fucking razor? And they have a guard pinned up against the fucking wall. And there's one inmate who kept on saying over and over again, I should fucking kill you.
It's almost like the system's designed to push you back into that life.
If I was going to go back and sell drugs, I would be doing it. I wouldn't be standing in front of you like begging for this opportunity.
When you have to pull something off, it's a lot different to when you want to pull something off. So a lot of the successful entrepreneurs, because it's like there's no backup plan, it's like I have to succeed.
And that's the difference between an entrepreneur and a normal person. The entrepreneur knows it and isn't scared to jump into the fire.
Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to the Unbreakable Podcast. Today, we have a special guest, Mr. Brian Calcott. Brian, welcome to the podcast.
Thank you so much.
So, we've had some very interesting guests from all over the world. Obviously, this is an Australian-based podcast, but we've been expanding into the US. One of the biggest ones we did recently was with Gene Deal, head of security for Puff and Notorious B.I.G. That was a fantastic episode. You guys loved it so much, we thought we were going to do more out here. But as with us on the Unbreakable Podcast, this is more about quality over quantity. So when I have guests, I want to make sure they align with my audience, because we're about positivity, money, mindset, and inspiring stories from interesting people. Brian definitely fits that description for this podcast. Now, off the back of Brian, he's been generous enough to introduce us to several more guests that we're going to have on the podcast. I'm going to get into that a little bit after this. Brian's backstory is a fascinating one. He grew up in a small town and he went on to do very, very, very big things, not too dissimilar to other people on this podcast. When I say big things, some things were big and bad, some things were big and good. But as with everyone else on this story, we're going to capture who he is as a person. We're going to capture some rags to riches stories. We're going to capture some chaos. We're going to take you guys into the world of trafficking. We're going to take you a little bit into the world of prison. And then we're going to take you out of that world as part of Brian's story. And we're going to capture his turnaround story. And that to me is what I find particularly inspiring, because he's actually gone from trafficking to prison to business. He's made millions of dollars outside of prison walls. And on this podcast, that's the type of energy we want to capture. So he's got a fascinating story. He knows some fascinating people. I'm not going to get into it here. I'm going to let my fantastic clippers and editors make a banger trailer for you guys. You probably said that at the start. But first and foremost, Brian, thank you so much for your time. And I'm really excited for this one. I think it's going to be a banger.
I do too. Now I got to live up to that intro.
How was the intro?
It was amazing. That's what I said.
I'm getting better at them. Dude, you should have seen when I first started. I'll be like, welcome to my podcast.
Yeah.
I'd be like heaps awkward and weird.
Well, you have to develop a on-camera presence, but you have to remain authentic at the same time.
Well, the only time I build a presence is for the intro, and then I just be myself. So from now, everything's just Liam.
Yeah.
So now it's just Liam and Brian. So don't even worry about these fucking cameras. Just pretend it's you and me.
Sounds good.
Which it basically is.
Yeah, I can do that.
So listen, I watched because you've done a few podcasts. Mm-hmm. And obviously, before we did this one, I kind of had to think to myself, which one did I want to watch so I could get a bit of a sense for kind of your backstory and who you are as a person. I chose Soft White Underbelly because I find, as you said before, you can be the most raw in there. And I think that gave people a view into who you are as a person, because without me telling your backstory for you too much, just for the audience. So, grew up in a small town. Your father was a pastor. I grew up with your father and your mother, moved around quite a lot. You had your sister with you as well. Mm-hmm. Similar to me, I grew up in what do they call it? The social housing over here, like a project sort of commission.
Projects.
Yeah. So we grew up
government housing, something like that.
Some shithole like that.
Yeah.
But like similar story to me, similar type of family dynamic. So I really like that. And I find people who've grown up in small towns often will aspire to big things because you kind of want to move away from what you grew up in. So, you know, your story starts there. You kind of, I got the essence that you were built to be able to do anything you wanted to do in life. And often people that get involved in large scale things, whether it's business or on the darker side of life, that activity will often find them rather than them seek it out. Like, it's not as if you woke up one day and said, I'm going to start moving bricks of cocaine. Like, that found you.
Yeah.
So that kind of found you. And then you did a little bit of time in prison for that, came out, became very successful as an entrepreneur, and then kind of got led back into that life a little bit, and then came out again and became a successful entrepreneur. And what I liked most about the Soft White Underbelly interview was you talked about the kind of, you know, the death of ego and the rebirth of you as a person. So what I want to capture here for people, this is a fucking good intro now.
Okay.
I want to capture that reborn version of you. Okay. And I want to take people through the story and just kind of introduce them to the man that you are now. How's that sound?
Sounds perfect.
Beautiful.
Okay.
So let's start, because we actually met through Owen Hansen.
Yep.
Super cool guy.
Absolutely.
Dude, his ability to kind of capture his story is fantastic.
Well, not only that, though, but his just entrepreneurial spirit. He's in a federal halfway house right now, and he's working on a company that a couple years will be worth $100 million.
Protein ice cream?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I find it's very inspiring.
I find like these types of energetic people attract each other. Like, everyone I've had on my podcast has similar attributes to me. So
absolutely,
I think we've got a bit of Owen in us, and Owen's got a bit of our attributes. But he captured his story really well, and I think there's some overlap because, correct me if I'm wrong, like, he started out as a bookie and ended up moving cash for the Cartel. And, you know, you started out, like, correct me if I'm wrong, but you started out wanting to help out someone's sister whose brother was involved with them.
So we went from a small town in West Texas, and I guess that would be, you know, similar to going out west in Australia. I mean, literally, if you look at between New York and LA, it's the same thing as what Sydney and Melbourne on the East Coast, and then Perth out west. And so I was from out, you know, what would be considered closer to Perth if you were looking at it in the U.S.
Yes.
And this was a town of 4,000 people, just a, you know, shithole town in West Texas, cowboys, guns. But I mean, I absolutely loved it. And it was, to me, it was just the greatest upbringing and the greatest childhood you could possibly have. I had the greatest best friend I think a little boy could ever have. I like still love Rex to this day. I mean, I don't think I'll ever have another friend like him. And his father was just the epitome of what a man was supposed to be, just unbelievably masculine, hard worker. I mean, I don't think there's a thing in the world that scared him, but yet how he was with his wife, he was so loving and so gentle, and how he was with Rex. And even myself, the respect that he didn't demand it, he commanded it. And he never had to say a harsh word to Rex or myself, because if he told you to do something, you just wanted to do something because you didn't want to disappoint him. And just the very fact of disappointing him was enough to follow what he said. So it was just this amazing, what I think is just this amazing upbringing, social standing. My father was a pastor. We didn't have money, but that didn't matter. And then we go to New Jersey, 45 minutes outside of New York City. And this is, you know what I mean, late 80s, early 90s. So I really wasn't prepared for the cultural difference. And I mean, it's drastically different between West Texas and right outside of New York. And that was the first time in my life that I felt inferior. And it was all because of money.
Is it because you're around like bigger things, right?
Well, it's just, you got to understand, like, I mean, granted, the third wealthiest person in Texas lived across the street from us in Pecos. And that's shocking. You see this town, but money just didn't matter as much. And you know, we lived in the church parsonage. It was a nice house. Part of my father's salary was a membership to the country club. So even though we weren't wealthy, we still had that social standing. In New Jersey, right outside of New York, being a pastor's kid is a strike against you rather than cool. And these kids' dads were working in New York City on Wall Street, just, you know, millions and millions. And they had new Jordans, and I had never even heard of what Jordans were, but my family sure as hell couldn't afford them. And like I said, it was the first time in my life that I felt inferior. And the only thing that these kids had on me in my mind was money. And it's taken me 30 years to really grasp how traumatic that was. And when I went on Softwood Underbelly.
You mean the impact of being around people who had stuff that you wanted but you didn't have, and you felt like you didn't fit in with those people?
Well, you know what it is? It was taking your source of identity. It is ultimately what it was. When you're younger, your source of identity isn't internal. Your source of identity is coming from external means, and it's external validation, and it's that external world telling you have worth and telling you that you have value and telling you who you are. And I wanted to be a fucking cowboy. I mean, even to this day, I want to be a cowboy more than anything. There's no greater lifestyle. There's no greater mindset. I mean, I love the way cowboys are. And I was on that path, and to get that taken from you. So it was like I had my identity taken from me at the same time that I had my value and my self-worth.
Like a Texas-style cowboy?
Absolutely, yeah. I was 9 years old. My best friend Rex was 10. We would go out to his grandfather's ranch. We would be given the keys to a work truck, and we'd be given a list of chores. Drop off hay here, drop off salt lick here. And we'd be driving on county roads in a truck. He was 10, I was 9. Neither one of us had a license. There'd be a shotgun in the center for rattlesnakes, and that's just how it was. And I mean, it's just like, it was absolutely fucking glorious. I cannot think of a better way to grow up.
So you played Red Dead Redemption?
What's that?
You've played Red Dead Redemption?
No.
You haven't played the video game?
Oh, no.
It's like a fucking viral, it's like GTA for cowboys. Basically.
Really? Okay.
Yeah. I played it when I was a kid. It was
incredible.
Really?
Okay.
That made me want to be a cowboy.
Okay. Yeah, there's just something about the American Southwest. Even to this day, that's where I feel most at home. Like my soul is at rest when I'm out in the American Southwest.
So you moved away from Rex when you went to New Jersey, right?
Mm-hmm. When I was 10.
That's right. Okay. So you grew up there. You're around all these people that got money. You kind of lose your identity a little bit, and you're chasing that. That was your validation.
It was.
And that was what made you feel like you had worth. So that was kind of what you chased at that. Like from a young age, that's what you wanted to chase. Fast forward, who was it that you met that first introduced you to flipping bricks of coke?
It was my ex.
If I could be direct.
Yeah, so it was my ex-girlfriend. Well, the reason why I was telling you that is because I didn't want to make it seem like, oh, she just pulled me into this life of crime. When I was in high school, I would go into New York City and I would buy weed from New York City, come back out, sell it to the rich kids. I wasn't scared to, go in there. So that's what kind of started, I wouldn't say career at that point. That's what kind of started it as a side hustle. Then I moved from New Jersey to San Antonio. And San Antonio is close to the Mexican border, so drugs are cheap. And at that time, you could get a pound of swag, which is Mexican brickweed, for $350. You could send it back to New York and New Jersey for $1,200. So I called my buddy Lou right away and was like, dude, $350 a pound? He's like, let's get 10. So that was the first time that I started trafficking. And I was 18 years old. I had been in Texas like 3 months. And that progressed to, I started bringing small ounces of coke to Kentucky because you could get an ounce for $500. This is before 9/11, so you could literally walk on the plane with it, bring it to Kentucky, sell it for $1,500. And then I started going to raves, started selling ecstasy. And it was my ex-girlfriend. Her family was from a small town in Mexico, and this little small town was the capital of the Gulf Cartel. And at that particular time, the Gulf Cartel was the strongest cartel. This is after all of the cartels fell in Colombia. After that happened, all of the power in the drug trade went to Mexico. And the Gulf Cartel was the strongest cartel because they controlled the routes that went into Nuevo Laredo. And in Nuevo Laredo, 85% of the trucks entering into the United States go through Nuevo Laredo. And then if you look at the Eastern Seaboard, the majority of the population is over here on the Eastern Seaboard. So this is the most profitable route of illegal drugs coming into the United States. And not a lot of people know it, but San Antonio was the largest land transshipment point for illegal drugs in the United States. So that's what her family was tied to. I was going to college just kind of side hustling. And then I found out who her family was.
Wait, tied to the Gulf Cartel?
Oh, yeah.
Oh, jeez.
Oh, yeah.
So wait, this is after the fall of the Medellin Cartel? And
yeah, so what happened is they killed Pablo Escobar in 1993, and you're going to get that whole fucking backstory with Roger. Like, you have no,
we got something cool in
store
for
idea.
Them.
Oh, yeah. You want to talk about, like, going right to the source of that whole story.
We'll get him out to Miami, yeah?
Yeah. Oh, absolutely,
got a good studio.
Yeah. No, your viewers, holy shit, it does.
They're very spoiled, you motherfuckers.
Yeah, that story.
Sometimes they're like, oh, get this going. I'm like, get your own fucking podcast.
Yeah, you are going to get the inside scoop of literally the start of the Medellin Cartel, Pablo Escobar, Jorge Ochoa. I mean, it's just like, dude, I've been around him for a month and he tells these stories and I'm still just like, holy shit, I can't believe I'm hearing this firsthand.
How long have you and Roger known each other?
I've known Roger right now for about 2.5 months. I've spent
just so everyone knows, this is Roger Reeve and he was connected to the cartel, the Medellin cartel, who we're talking about in this part.
He was literally responsible for setting up the main trafficking routes for the Medellin cartel into the United States that essentially solidified the Medellin cartel becoming what it was.
Correct.
And Barry, I don't even want to.
Yeah, no, save that for the next
we'll save that for the next.
So that's tangential to the Gulf cartel.
So that's all the cocaine comes on the scene. All of the powers in Colombia, they kill Pablo Escobar in 1993. And then at that point, the power from the cartels went from Colombia into Mexico. And there was, because before that, the Mexican cartels, they weren't really cartels. It was farmers in the mountains growing weed, things like that. They just didn't have the most profitable substance is what it came down to. But after they killed Pablo, the Mexican cartels got a hold in the trafficking routes and started bringing the cocaine in through Mexico. Before, it was going in through the Caribbean. So that's why Colombia had the power, and then all of the Colombians and people in Miami had the power. But once they toppled those Colombian cartels and there was no power structure anymore, that's what brought about the creation of the strength of the Mexican cartels. And the Gulf cartel, because of Nuevo Laredo, was the strongest cartel. And my ex's family was from the capital, from the Gulf cartel. And I remember the first time I went to Mexico with her, before I really knew who her family was. We pull into this small little shithole town in the mountains, and there's a Federale checkpoint. And they're checking for the money coming back in because this is, the cartel town. And we pull up to the checkpoint. She hands the ID to the Federale, and he looks at it, and he says her last name, and he just kind of gives her that look, and he gives her the ID, and he just, gives her the nod, go in.
All right, so they were kind of
and so I'm just sitting there that was kind of fucking awkward. I'll never forget that moment. And then come to find out who her family was, and her father was already in federal prison. I went to visit him in federal prison before all of this happened, and then I think 9 months later I was actually in that federal prison where I went and visited him.
Really?
Yeah, he was there when I got there.
So which family member was it that introduced you to the business, to the family business, if we will?
So her brother-in-law was going to prison for being involved with their family, and he was facing 6.5 years. Her sister was concerned that they wouldn't have an income when he went away. And so my ex had gone with me to Miami because I sold ecstasy. And at the time you could go to Miami and you could get cheaper pills. And so I had gone out there and I was getting pills, bringing it back to Texas. And my friend had introduced me to his cousins, and his cousins out there ran the hood out there, really, really notorious neighborhoods. And his cousin asked me if I could get keys. I said, yes. And he was just like, I'll give you $25,000 for him. I'll take 5 a week. And I'm sitting there but he said it had to be pure scama. Scama means fish scale. So that's pure cocaine. And at that time you could get a key of pure for $15,000 in San Antonio, Texas. So I'm sitting there wow, $10,000 a key, 5 a week. But then I'm going to take that $50,000, buy ecstasy over here, bring it back, and double up. So I'm sitting here 22 years old, hell yeah, I'm about to make money.
For a young kid.
I'm about to make money. But I didn't push it because I was going to college. I wanted to be an attorney, and I was on the dean's list. And I think that I didn't push it because even at an older age, when I started making $500,000 a month, it fucking consumes you. And I think I knew that it would consume me and I wouldn't be able to be an attorney, so I really didn't push it. But the ecstasy kind of slowed down. My ex's sister was concerned they wouldn't have an income, and so she told my ex, she's like, why don't you get Brian into selling keys? And so like I said, I can 100% accept responsibility for it. I'm not trying to put the responsibility on anybody else, but she had the conversation with me. So I went and asked her brother-in-law, and he told me, he said, I'm already going to prison for 6.5 years. He said, I'll be honest with you. I said, I don't want to be insulting, but you have a lot of things going for you. I know you're going to go to law school. And he told me, he said, I think if you got caught, you would cooperate. And I said, you know what? I can respect that. So I went back to the house, and I'll never forget it. I told my ex, and she had this pink Nokia 6600 phone. It was sitting on the kitchen counter, and I told her. He said no.
Strong phones, by the way.
Yeah. This was 2002. Yeah. Oh, absolutely. Yeah. So she goes and she picks up the phone. She goes into the room. She shuts the door. She comes out 2 minutes or less later, just nonchalantly throws the phone on the counter, and she goes, "It's done." And she talked to her sister. Her sister essentially told her husband, hey, we need this. You know what I mean? You got to hook him up.
Oh, so the brother-in-law
said no,
pushed you away, and she made a phone call, got you back.
The sisters talked, and then it was just okay, yeah. So I was bringing keys to a small town in Texas called Lubbock, and the individual that I was bringing the keys to, I got caught in July of 2002. In September of 2001, he had gotten caught, And rather than doing his time like a man, he became a snitch and he became a confidential informant. And what that means in the United States is that they wire you up, they have you go to various drug dealers and make controlled buys so that they can arrest other people. So he was working for this DEA task force in Lubbock as a confidential informant, setting people up, but at the same time, he was selling coke.
So he'd probably be in witness protection after that, right?
No, not really. I mean, witness protection is more for like really established, organized crime. It's not what the movies, you know what I mean, would make it seem. But the thing of it is that he was a confidential informant, so nobody knew that he was cooperating.
So he was selling to a CI not knowing.
Well, he was a confidential informant. I didn't know he was a confidential informant, but he wasn't setting me up. He was selling coke on the back end at the same time as being a confidential informant. So he was double dipping. So the task force that he was working for found out because he sold coke to a confidential informant that was working on the same task force he was working on. So now the task force is like, oh, we're going to fuck him. And so they had that confidential informant introduce him directly to an undercover cop. And so now he's selling directly to the undercover cop. And he tells me, hey, this guy wants 2 keys. And so I told him, I was like, we'll start with 1, you know what I mean? And so I brought up a key.
So he introduced you to the undercover.
Mm-hmm. Well, he got introduced to an undercover by a confidential informant because it was all the task force was like, oh, you're a confidential informant, but you didn't learn your lesson and you're continuing to sell coke thinking that you can get away with this. So they just were like, okay, we're going to, absolutely fuck him.
It's almost the perfect storm for you then, isn't it?
It was, yeah. And so went up there. It was a controlled buy. They let us get away from the scene. And I just fucking knew. And at that point, there's no decision. It's just like, if you go to punch me in the face, I'm going to block myself. Yeah. And so they went to contain me, and I just hit the fucking gas and took off. 130 mile an hour police chase. And like I said, there's no choice in that matter.
How many kilos did you sell to them?
Overall, that was a case that had like 6 keys. I wasn't involved in all of that. It was kind of stuff that Justin had done. But the way the federal system works under conspiracy is that if you and I are conspiring, even if I sold you 1 gram, but I know you're selling cocaine and you've sold 10 kilos that way, you can be brought into that entire conspiracy.
Oh man, it's tough how it works out here, isn't it? Like, if they can put one of those together,
they don't have to catch you with anything. They just have to prove conspiracy, and they prove conspiracy through hearsay. So the way the state system works is, if I sold you a key and I get away, even if you leave here and you get caught with it, right, and you say it came from Brian, they can't arrest me. They have to catch me in the act. That's why they have to do controlled buys.
Right.
But the federal system, if I sell you a key and you leave and you say it came from Brian and they have one other piece of corroborating evidence, they can indict me just on fucking hearsay.
So you'd sold it. They do the setup for the sting. You floor it, get away in the car. At what point did they catch you?
Well, so there was a little Cessna, because West Texas is very, very vast, and they'll use Cessnas to run radar. To catch speeders out there. And so there was a Cessna in the air for the Texas Highway Patrol, which is called the Department of Public Safety. And so they called in help to that Cessna, and that Cessna came over right away and spotted us, and so told them where we were at. And I remember that all 3 of us were running down the street. We had the bag full of money. I hear the tires screeching down the street, and I see the car coming at us, and I know that it's an undercover cop car. And I remember I took the money and I threw it to my ex, and I said, run that way. And I ran at the cops, because at that point there was only one, car. And so I ran at them, you know what I mean, so they would get me, and she'd still have time to get away. Right. And so they came in, they caught, obviously all 3 of us. She almost got away with the money and everything. But
how much cash was it?
It was $35,000.
Okay.
Yeah, because they wanted 2 keys. I told them I would only do 1, and it's just, I didn't even know there was 35. There were so many red flags where if the person that I was dealing with would have been honest. I mean, as soon as I got into the situation, like, you can fucking feel it.
Yeah,
I knew the guy was undercover. But at that point with federal conspiracy, it wouldn't have mattered if I would have said no, you know what, I'm good, and would have walked away. They still would have gotten me for a conspiracy.
And when you were buying it, were you actually going and buying it directly from the Gulf Cartel?
I was getting it from her family.
Right. Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. But you didn't actually have to go into any of those
cartels.
No.
That
would have been a bit.
No.
Yeah.
That's. I mean, not the beauty, but that's the
you
whole.
had a nice
that's the whole
level of.
San Antonio is the place where
Okay.
it's already there. But when we were getting keys, there would be sometimes there would be like, hey, I need something, and they say, well, it's going to take 2 days. It's going to take a couple days. It's got to get past the border.
But you had a nice layer between you and the cartel. Yeah. You don't want to go there and get your head chopped off. Or whatever.
Yeah. But I mean, that was who her family was when I got to federal prison and I hit the yard right away. and went over there and instantly started talking to her father. It was people are kind of looking like, who the fuck is this white boy?
So let's do this. Let's take the audience from
Okay.
the point of arrest to the point of going through the trial and going to prison. So you threw the cash out. They arrested you guys. How did you? I assume that you didn't make bail, and you.
Oh no, they wouldn't give us bail. They wouldn't give us bail because it wouldn't cooperate.
Okay, and then you go through that. So bail refused. You go through that sentencing process. Talk me through when you got the sentence to when you went into the prison, and then take me up to that moment when, because it must have been pretty surreal meeting her father. Take me through the sentencing, going in, meeting your girlfriend's father, and how that whole experience was.
Okay. So it was my first offense. I was 22 years old. I was going to school on the dean's list, and none of that mattered. They knew who my ex's family was. They thought that they could scare me into cooperating, and I wouldn't cooperate, so they threw the book at me. I should have gotten 5 years, and I ended up getting 90 months, 7.5 years, because I wouldn't cooperate. And I'll never forget the moment where my attorney, she was lying, my own attorney was lying to me, trying to scare me to get me to cooperate. And she looked at me and she said, "You're going to do 15 years in prison unless you rat on Valerie and her family." And I looked at her and I said, "So be it." And her mouth like literally dropped wide open. I swear I was the only person to ever tell her no. Where, you know, here's someone who's 22 years old and she said, she was lying. She said, "You're gonna do 15 years in prison unless you rat." And I was just like, "So be it. Like, I'm not fucking ratting." And that was it. The fucking prosecutor, you know what I mean, lost her shit because they want to scare you. They want to intimidate you. So now it's not even about the social good. Now it's about fucking ego.
Do you know what's funny? On Joe Rogan, did you see the episode where they're talking about that with, who's the guy that advocates for freeing, what is it? He advocates for freeing people who've been wrongly in prison, and he was saying how the system in most developed countries is set up for, like, you know, reform versus where over here it's set up for, it's like a game of winner versus loser. So they don't see it as like, what's an appropriate punishment and like, can we reform this guy? It's like, who's going to win, me or him?
It's just punishment. There's no restorative justice. There's no focus on rehabilitation. There's nothing. And if there was an additional focus besides punishment, America would have woken up a long time ago. They would have looked at the numbers and said, okay, it doesn't matter how many people we incarcerate. It doesn't matter how strict these laws are. Drug use is going up. This isn't working. The only thing it's doing is punishing people.
Remember we were saying just out there before, like one of the charities I used to be involved with, because we had a CBD business when it was fully legal.
Yeah.
But like I was making money off something 100% legal, but there are humans in cages like animals. 30, you know, there were, at the time we were talking to the Last Prisoner Project. And at that time, this might have been like 2019, there were 30,000 people in cages like animals for non-violent weed possession. I'm not talking weed dealing. I'm talking having weed on you.
Yep.
So for me, ethically, that really didn't sit well with me.
Have you read some of the cases in Oklahoma before their laws changed? There was a mother that got caught with a joint 3 times, and on her 3rd fucking time, they sentenced her to 30 years.
Are you joking?
I swear to God, you can look it up. That was one of the things that really drove reform in that state. 3 times for fucking drug possession, nothing to do selling, didn't sell to a confidential informant, nothing. And because it's 3 strikes and you're out, 30 fucking years.
For smoking a joint.
Yes.
You expect
30
that to happen
years.
in like Bali, but not in America, man. But yeah, there's a long way to go. Okay, so
yeah, there is.
So they throw the book at you, 7.5 years.
Yeah, throw the book at me. I'll never forget. It's kind of like you sign the plea bargain and you know what's coming, but it doesn't hit you. The reality doesn't hit you until you're standing in front of that judge and you hear your sentence. And I remember that and went back to the jail and crawled up on my bunk and just put, you know, the blanket over my head and just sat there and probably cried for like 2 fucking hours. Because at that point, it's like, even though you know it's a fantasy, you're still just in the back of your mind hoping like, oh, maybe the judge is going to see me as a human. Maybe he's going to care that I was about to go to law school. Maybe he's going to say, you know what, I'm going to just, you know, depart from the guidelines and I'm going to sentence you to pro. Even though you know it's not going to happen, you still have hope that maybe a miracle is going to happen.
You know what? There are countries where that does happen. They will look at someone and say he's got a promising future. You know, that's how it, I don't know, man. I just have this ethical view that like, if you put me in a room with a rapist, a murderer, and a drug dealer, like, who do you think is the biggest danger to society? You know what I mean? Like, I understand the need to protect people from this, that, whatever, and the war on drugs, and it's a complicated issue, but at the end of the day, like, you have to look at it and say, who's of the most danger to people walking on the street? And it's like, I don't know, man, it just doesn't sit right with me that some people have to lose so much of their life when they could genuinely be reformed.
Well, I'll tell you this. If you could show some good that came as a result of my incarceration, if you could show one person that because I was incarcerated, didn't use drugs, didn't overdose, didn't do something, I would say, you know what? Fuck it. I gave up 5.5 years of my life, but you know what? If there is one person that because of my sentence, because of how they punished me, is alive today, I would gladly say, you know what? I'm glad I did those 5.5 years. But the whole fucking point is that everybody that wanted to get high that night in Lubbock still got fucking high. And everybody who wanted to get high years after that still got high. The only difference is, rather than the drug dealer that my key would have ended up in, they went down the street to the other fucking drug dealer. And that's the thing that separates drug dealing from any other type of crime, is that so as long as there is a market and so as long as there is a demand, it doesn't matter if you take one player out, the market and the demand will just create a vacuum and suck someone else right into that position. And that's what they don't get. And it's a difference between using power and using force. When you talk about a murderer and you talk about a rapist, they're violating somebody's autonomy. And so they've used force against someone, you do have to use force against them. Law enforcement is required there. But when you're talking about drugs, there's no violation of someone's autonomy. It is a person who is saying, this is the product. It is a person that's saying, I want to purchase the product. And the whole thing about, oh, drug dealers push their products on people, that's Hollywood sensationalized fucking bullshit. That's not the case. And so it's a transaction between two people where there's no violation of autonomy. The only way that you can solve that kind of problem is with power and not force. And we are using force for a problem that will only be solved with power. And I say this all the time, America is as addicted to drugs as it is addicted to the use of force. You become addicted to drugs, you know that it's not going to solve the problems, you know that it's doing more harm than good, but it's an addiction because you can't fucking stop. So the war on drugs, the law enforcement with the whole drug laws, we are addicted to that because it is clear beyond a reasonable doubt that it is not going to create any good, and that it makes things worse than they were before, and yet we can't fucking stop. So it's just an addiction on both sides.
That whole thing should have been a speech to Congress. But listen, man, look, I mean, you're out here doing your thing at the moment, and like, your whole story has been trying to transform negativity into positivity. And like, I think a lot of the stories that you tell in terms of how you've turned your life around, which we'll get into, you know, to your point, if that helps one person, then there is some good that can come out of it. So, and I know that's the journey that you're on at the moment, trying to inspire other people to better themselves.
Well, the thing of it too is like, I went to prison. I remember sitting in the back of that cop car and saying, this was fucking stupid, I'll never do this again. And I knew I was going to prison. Like, this is Texas, you just got caught with a kilo of cocaine. I knew it was the feds. I knew about conspiracy. I'm just like, I'm going to prison. Like, just have to accept it.
So let's take people through that. So you get the 7.5 years and it's shit. And what was it like when you first went in? And talk me through the experience of actually going in, because I'm sure it would have been chaotic in Texas prison.
So this was federal prison. So in the United States, there are state prisons and there are federal prisons. I don't know how it is in Australia, but if you get convicted by a state government, Texas, California, New Jersey, things like that, you go into state prison. If you get convicted by the federal government, you go into federal prison. On the federal level, there are the most notorious prison there is ADX. That's where John Gotti is, El Chapo, all those places, like 24-hour lockdown. That's serious shit. Underneath that, you have United States penitentiaries. United States penitentiaries are the like kind of prisons they make fucking movies about. People getting stabbed all the time, you know, crazy gang wars, shit like that. Then you have the mediums. You have medium highs and medium lows, and then you have out custody, which is like club fed, where they have, you know, the country club, what they call it. So
Jordan Belfort.
Yeah, of course, yeah. So I was in a medium low. I was one step above out custody. So overall, it was definitely like the safest kind of prison experience you could have.
Was that by luck or by choice?
Well, it's just because it was my first offense and I didn't have any violence. But the thing of it is that it was the safest prison experience you could possibly have, short of being in a camp and out custody. But as far as behind a fence, it was definitely the safest. But, you know, still saw people get sliced with razors, still saw race riots, still saw people get their heads bashed in with locks and socks.
To the extent you're comfortable, Brian, by the way.
No, it's okay. So I was there. I mean, fuck, dude, you're there 5 years. It's just like you become numb to it. But the part that really made me open my eyes and say, okay, this is fucking serious. And I mean, it's serious when you get there, but until you actually see something, you just don't realize it. And I was there 2 months, and I was walking from one side of the unit to the other side of the unit. It was about 9 o'clock at night, and I fucking felt it before I saw it. And I'm walking through the main part of the unit, and like I said, like I felt it. I knew something was going on, and so then I just kind of like look back, and I'm like, all right, what the fuck's going on? And there's about 150 inmates gathered in the main part of the unit, and you can see they're all facing forward, and it's just high alert. I mean, like I said, you can feel it. And I look up to the front, right by where the office was, where the guards are, and they have a guard pinned up against the fucking wall. And there's one inmate, he's surrounded by 3 inmates, but there's one inmate that's in the guard's face, and he just kept on saying over and over again, I should fucking kill you. I should fucking kill you. And the other guard is in the office. They've got the door open. They won't let the guard close the fucking door. He's on the phone calling the fucking lieutenant. That guard's scared as shit, like literally won't even come out. But I mean, at that point, what the fuck are you gonna do? There's at least 150 inmates down there. So the lieutenant walks in with the 2 main guys from SIS, and SIS is like the special investigation things for like gang units. And lieutenant walks in, and he tries to take control of the situation, and he goes, what's everybody standing around the unit for? Everybody go back to their cells. And you heard one inmate in the back of the crowd say, fuck that. And then another inmate was like, fuck you. And so the lieutenant instantly knew it was a powder keg about to go off. And there was all the like leaders of the big Mexican gangs and the Mexican tangos. And I'll explain what a tango is in a second. But because I was in Texas, it was majority Mexican. So Mexicans ran the yard. So all the big Mexican gangs and tango leaders are right there. And he looks at them and he's like, let me talk to you guys outside. So he brings 5 of them outside. And he says, I will fire Officer Lance tomorrow. I give you my word. Please do not let this go down like this. I understand what he did. He fucked up. Like, that's on me. I'll take accountability for it. Don't let this go down like this. And so they were satisfied with that. So it's just like this lieutenant instantly understanding prison politics, understanding how to play them. So now the gang leaders and the tango leaders come in, and they're like, all right, it's been taken care of. Everybody go back to their cell. And that's what made everybody go back to their cell.
Really?
So the next day, the lieutenant calls him down there, and he says, here's the paperwork. I'll fire him. Like, it's already filled out. All I have to do is sign it, and he's fired. He said, you got that option. I gave you my word. Or you guys got a favor. And they all kind of looked at each other like, you know what? We'll take the favor. And after that, that guard was never the same. Really? So it's one thing to see like inmate on inmate violence, but that level of violence and just the fact that, like I said, it's, I'm not going to sit here and say, oh yeah, I was in a fucking USP, it was all these crazy things, but it's just like the fact that could even happen at medium low, it just instantly opened my eyes. And that's the most invasive part of the prison experience. I've been in fights in my life, but I've never been the aggressor. I've always defended myself. And I can say that I've never engaged in violence, meaning that I violated somebody else's autonomy. I'm a nonviolent person. Yeah. So to be forced, I don't care if it could have been like a room at the fucking Ritz-Carlton and the best food in the world and eating steak and lobster every night, to be forced to live in that kind of violent situation when you're a nonviolent person and you have to adapt certain parts of your psychology that there's really no getting rid of. That was the most invasive part. And so anytime you'd see, I mean, like I remember seeing a guy just get fucking sliced like left and right with the fucking razor. I mean, there's just blood everywhere. Seeing the dude's fucking skin hanging down. It was actually one of our homeboys. So I ran with Tango Sananto. And so what that means is that Mexicans have gangs where there's like an actual leader. And that means it kind of, for the most part, if you're part of a gang, when you get outside of prison, you still have membership. And that was more like the Mexican mafia, things like that, like Texas Syndicate. And they would try to like more control the compound. So people in prisons that didn't want to be part of gangs, they formed tangos. And the tangos were kind of like almost like democratic rule. We're going to run together because, we're all from San Antonio, or, we're all from Austin or Houston, something like that. And so I was part of a tango. So it was there was one other white person, but it was me and one other white person, and we all ran with the Mexican tango from San Antonio. And so it was one of our older homeboys, Andy. He was about 65. He had done like 20 years, and he had done like USP time. And so so what happens is you start off in a USP. If you don't get in a lot of trouble, they'll drop you down to a medium high, then drop you down to a medium low. So Andy was at the last part of like a 20-year bid. But I mean, like, dude, you've been in prison for 20 years. Like, your head is fucked. And especially coming from a fucking USP, it's just, until you've been around those kind of people, you just can't understand their mindset. And so there was another inmate, his name was Cowboy, and he was just a fucking just loud mouth, just fucking asshole, right? And he would always run his mouth, and he was probably about in his 40s, and Andy was older, and Andy didn't like him, and you kind of just knew that they were essentially going to have words, and you were going to have two people that just weren't going to fucking back off. And Andy always said, like, I don't give a shit. If I have a problem, I'm just fucking slicing someone. You know what I mean? Like taking the fucking razor out and just fucking slicing them. And so sure enough, Andy and fucking Cowboy had a problem, and Cowboy came, you know what I mean, to fucking fight him, and Andy just had the fucking razor in his fucking hand, and I mean, just, you'd be surprised with one of those little fucking craft razors. I mean, if you really fucking go back with it, and just started slicing the fucking living shit out of him, and it's just like instantly blood everywhere. And the thing of it is that the dude Cowboy was part of a Mexican gang. That's our fucking homeboy. You understand? And it's just like everybody sees something that's going on, so now you're just like, oh fuck, like, you know, it's just about to pop off. You know, like, are we? And that's like the most invasive feeling. When you have to stand there and wonder if you're gonna have to fight for your life, I can't explain what that is. And then I've said this before, if I went to war and I knew that I was gonna die for my country or die for a fucking cause, I would be more okay with it. But to stand in prison and wonder if you're going to die for nothing other than just the most savage part of fucking human existence, that's the part where it's just like, for what?
And where did he slice him up?
Oh, fucking across his chest, across his arm, across his fucking leg. I mean, Andy was just going after that fucking razor, like fucking left and right.
How did he pull up?
Huh?
Oh, so pull up in Australia means how did he hold up after the?
Oh,
slicing?
well, the fucking dude Cowboy.
Yeah.
I mean, it's just like adrenaline. He runs back to his bunk, and there's like these metal bunks. And the middle one and the top one had this bar that would go across. It's kind of hard to explain, but it was like the spring system. And the bar was kind of the fail safe. So if you weighed too much, the bar would stop you. And he went in there and just ripped that fucking bar off right away. And he was coming back. I mean, he would have fucking probably killed Andy. And the reason why I turned into a whole bunch of fucking prison drama is my cellie at the time, and like one of our top homeboys, Bailey, he fucking grabbed the bar out of fucking Cowboy's hands. Well, that was a no-no because at that point they were, you know, it was one-on-one.
Wait, so he's running in there, sliced up.
Oh yeah. Oh dude, there was
up.
fucking blood all down the fucking hallway. The fucking cops wouldn't even touch him at first because he had so much fucking blood on him. Yeah, it was fucking crazy.
Jesus.
It was crazy.
Yeah, and it is kind of, to be honest, man, like when I hate hearing stuff like that, like if I hear someone that's gone in and they're a bare knuckle fighter and they've been around violence their entire life, it is what it is, you know?
Yeah.
But like when you take someone that's just dealt a little bit of drugs, you put them in that situation, it does make you think at a human level, like, you know, you said it right yourself, for what? Like, for fucking
human savagery, like
man.
Just barbarianism.
It's one of the darker parts of life. But listen, these are stories people have to hear, man.
Yeah.
Because like I said, like I've had people, we got 20 million views across all platforms last month.
Okay.
And we have people reach out, even like young men who said, look, I've watched your podcast, because I never have people on here that are active in that life.
Mm-hmm.
All of our stories are turnaround stories.
Yeah.
That's why it's called Unbreakable. It's
I
not
love
called
it.
fucking go out and flip bricks and stab people.
Yeah.
It's called like
Yeah.
Unbreakable, meaning like you got to go through some shit. You got to prove that you're unbreakable. And then you got to come on this podcast and talk about it. But we have people that reach out and they're like, you know, listen, I was caught up in some bad shit, and like I've heard all the turnaround stories that your guests have, and the recurring message is like, you know, like there is light on the other side of dark, and you can really make something of yourself having gone through some dark periods. And I think, you know, your story is a testament to that for reasons that we're going to get into in a moment. Okay, so you're in there. You do your 7.5.
Well, no, I did 5.5 that time.
5.5,
Yeah,
that's right,
5.5. Yeah.
So you come out, and then you know, people might not know you went on to become quite successful selling Porsches and Audis and luxury cars. And this is the part that really fucking pissed me off, man. Made me upset, because like you started doing really well at that, and then because you had a couple of bags of powder and you did time, you weren't even allowed to sell. Like the government wouldn't even let you sell cars.
It was the state of California.
That was upsetting, man, because it was like, that felt like the part where you really were turning it around. Correct me if I'm wrong. And like you're sitting on top of the world, you know, you're making money again, you're stacking paper, you're doing well, and they're like, you can't sell cars anymore. That for me was the upsetting part of the story, because it's like you'd finally started to do well, and rather than trying to help you reform and succeed, like you kind of really got mentally brought down a peg?
Yeah, well, it was, like I said, I remember being in the back of that police car. I made a promise to myself, I'm never going to do this again. I'm going to use every last second I have in prison to better myself. And I fucking read like nobody's business. I corresponded with college professors from all over the world, all over the United States. My criminal justice professors came to see me while I was there. I did criminological research while I was there. I corresponded with the head of the criminology program at Cambridge, Dr. Liebling. We were going back and forth. I told her about the research I was doing. She offered to help me get it published. So I was thinking, fuck, like if the person at the head of the Department of Criminology at Cambridge helps me get this research published, I might be able to go to fucking Cambridge and get a PhD.
You're really trying to better yourself.
Yeah, I was. But so I got out, I made the president's list, straight A's, working at like a really high-end fine dining restaurant, which at the time in San Antonio, Texas was great money. And so I was just proud of myself. And I went to California.
You should be, just so you know, you should be.
Yeah, well, thank you. Yeah, I was. And so I went to California because my sister was there, wanted to get out of Texas, and was just on cloud nine. Fucking loved California. I got this job at this Porsche and this Audi dealership, and it was
Porsche's my favorite car, by the way.
Dude, especially that I drove an Audi. I mean, it was fucking amazing. You worked from 12 to 7. You got an hour for lunch. You worked 5 days a week, and there was no manager breathing down your neck. It was just like, if you want to make money, fucking make money. If you don't want to make money and you want to sit at your desk, and so I just have this entrepreneurial spirit where I'm just like, wait a minute, I can make as much money as I want. It's just all
you
about
got a nice, clean, legit life.
So I loved it.
Luxury cars. You're doing well.
I sold the first Audi R8 V10 in the country to hit the streets.
Right.
I made $10,000 my first month, made $10,000 my second month. I had about $15,000 worth of deals that I was about to close on the third day of my third month.
And then all of a sudden,
they called me upstairs, and the owner, they didn't even tell the owner that I had a record because they were scared that he might care. He didn't care. He found out about it. He called the assistant manager and the general manager up there and said, whatever you have to do to help Brian, do it. If we have to hire an attorney, like, I want him to be able to work here. And so that was the part that was really disheartening, because it wasn't like I couldn't find an employer that wanted to hire me. Not only did I find an employer that wanted to hire me, but they were willing to fight for me. Like, that's how much they wanted for me to work there. And it wasn't just selling cars. It was, Silicon Valley. It was milestones in people's lives. They were coming in. It was like, they first got a decent paycheck. One guy wrote a book, and he got like, a great, great paycheck from it. So he's coming in buying his first Porsche.
So making a good
it's like you got to share milestones with people. It wasn't just a car.
You like that sort of human connection side
I do. And the other thing too is I know I conducted myself with honesty and integrity. I would bring people outside. I would educate them what true market value was. And these are people that didn't know.
Yep.
And I would educate them what true market value was. And I'd say, look, when you go into the finance office, that's what your numbers should be. Yep. And they'd look at me kind of like, damn, really? I was like, if you tell him that I told you that, you're going to get me fired. Yep. But if you want the best deal for the car, this is how you get it. And people really respected that, and they liked it. And my deals were done like that because I was doing it. I was just like, you know what? I'm going to be honest. I'm not going to jerk people around and try to make as much money as I can off each fucking deal. If this is a fair price, I'm going to educate them to what a fair price was. Yep. And that's why I was able to be so successful at it.
And that got taken away from you.
It did, yeah. And I'll never forget it.
Talk me through how that experience was, losing something that you'd succeeded at.
When I left that dealership, I went in my car and I cried. I cried because I was so proud of myself. I made a commitment to myself, and I felt like I honored that commitment. And then it just got taken away from me, and it didn't get taken away from me because of anything that I did in that moment. And it would be one thing if I was convicted of fraud, convicted of stealing people's social security numbers. I'd be like, okay, cool. You know what? I understand. I can't work in a dealership because I have access to that kind of information. But I knew that I was conducting myself honestly. And to have that taken from me, like I said, like I fucking cried. And after that, I just snapped out of it, and I was like, you know what? Fuck it. I'm going to make something better of it. You know what? I came out here, and I didn't want to go back to work in a restaurant. I found this Porsche and this Audi dealership. Fuck it. I'm going to find something else. Like, I'm going to turn this into a blessing. And I was able to just snap out of it, and just get my enthusiasm right back and my resilience. And I ended up in a group interview for AXA Financial Services.
I remember that. So this was your second legit job. So then you worked your way up there, kind of like a semi.
I didn't even get the job. I went into a group interview. I saw it on Craigslist, and this is back, when Craigslist, there was like really good jobs on it. And I was just like, you know what? This is a fucking shot in the dark, but so is the Porsche Audi dealership. I don't give a shit. I'm going to fucking sign up for this and I'm going to go. And so it's a group interview. There's guys that have just graduated with MBAs from Wharton School of Business, Michigan School of Business, like literally the top business schools in the United States. So they don't have a record. They have fucking masters. I'm sitting here thinking, there is no fucking way I'm getting this job. Like, no way. And so they do like a group interview where they ask a question. You have to say your answer out loud. And then the guy who is doing the group interview, he's like, all right, we'll be in touch. Tells everybody they can leave the room. And he comes over and he walks around the table. And I was kind of like the last one out on my side. And he just gently taps me on the elbow. And he's like, hey, come here. So I'm just like, okay. Like, it's kind of fucking weird. What's going on? Mm-hmm. So he lets everybody leave the interview room. And he looks at me and he goes, you have what it takes. This job's going to change your life. He's like, you're going to be a fucking millionaire. Right. And he told me straight up, he goes, you're going to work for 4 years. You're going to make $100,000 a year, which really isn't that much money. Yep. You're going to work 18 hours a day, 6 days a week. He goes, you're going to fucking hate life. He said, but your 5th year, he said, your life will fucking change. He said it was like 98% of people that make it to their 5th year never do.
And how old were you at this point?
I would have been 29, 30.
Okay.
Yeah, so, 29 or 30.
And how long did that job last?
I told him, I said, I'm going to tell you right now, I have a record. I've been in federal prison 5.5 years. And he looked at me and he said, I don't care. So as long as you can get bonded and pass your Series 70 or Series 63, he goes, I'll hire you. Right. I couldn't get bonded because of my record. Oh, right. So I never even got that job.
This is your second whack to your...
And it's just man. Like, I mean, here's someone who was not full of shit. You could tell this individual had money. And he's telling me, this is going to change your life. You're going to be a fucking millionaire.
Dude, it's so annoying because every time you got close to like that legit lifestyle that you were chasing, you just kept getting fucking whacked, right? Which I'm an entrepreneur, right?
Yeah.
So I'm used to getting punched in the face and fucking kicked in the dick every day.
Yeah.
And you probably are too,
get used
right?
to it, yeah.
So,
if you want to be an entrepreneur, yeah.
But that really hits you at a human level, and I genuinely have empathy for people who are trying to like actually go out and make a real living, get a legitimate job, and like keep getting hammered for something that like shouldn't follow you around for the rest of your life. For what it's worth as well, mm-hmm. just tangential. Like I had a buddy, and he was in your exact same position. He had a financial services job, and he had a record for minor drug dealing for 5 years prior, and they were about to go public, and said that so he would have had to disclose his record. But get this, he was like, fuck, what do I do? I said, well, you can go get the same job in London where you don't have a record, or you can go be an entrepreneur. He's now a self-made multi-millionaire entrepreneur because of that. So sometimes it can push you in the right direction.
It can.
So, so that would have been a big hit to your ego, your pride. That would have been really like devastating mentally. And so then, correct me if I'm wrong, this is a chapter where you get kind of pulled back into...
So I had
some more gray area shenanigans, if we will.
At that point, I was starting to just get broken down. And granted, I can point to the system and try to place blame on the system, but ultimately I can't. Those are contributing factors. I have to accept responsibility that I ultimately was a determining factor. I chose to let it break me down. I chose to let it make me bitter. I chose to let it make me frustrated. But the final point where it was just like a light switch and I said, fuck it, was I had an appeal hearing with an administrative law judge of the state of California to try to get my sales license back to sell cars. Mm-hmm. And I went in there, suit and tie, did all the research that I needed to do. I mean, I literally spent 5 years in federal prison writing fucking motions. Like, I knew the law.
Bro, can I just ask, why the fuck do you need a license to sell a car anyway?
The wonderful state of California.
Well, couldn't you just sell cars in like another state or something, or did you just like it here?
Well, yeah, I wanted to be in California, and the other thing too is like that's where you were making money.
How? I swear you did.
So what's really crazy is that in other states, if felons couldn't sell cars, you wouldn't have car dealerships. Like if you go in most all the other states, it's predominantly felons.
I swear you need a license to take a piss out here. Is that fair to say?
Oh yeah, especially in California.
Okay.
Fuck yeah, so especially in California.
So you go to try and get it overturned, and how did that go?
I defended myself. The people in the courtroom stood up and fucking clapped for me, shook my hand on the way out. I embarrassed the state prosecutor, and the judge still ruled against me and said that there wasn't enough signs of rehabilitation. And I'm just like, I got out. I made the fucking president's list. I've done, you know what I mean? It's like, I got this job. I had others. It's just like, it's like, and not only that though, but I am standing in front of you making a passionate plea because I want this license, because I want this fucking career. If that isn't enough signs of rehabilitation, then what the fuck is? If I was going to go back and sell drugs, I would be doing it. I wouldn't be standing in front of you like begging for this opportunity.
It's almost like the system's designed to push you back into that life.
Well, that was the moment where I walked out of there. I'll never forget it. I remember on the stairs, and I had a suit and tie on, and I undid my tie, and it was just like, fuck it, I don't care at this point. And that was the time where, in the United States, how it worked at that time was Northern California is where all the high-grade marijuana came from. And you could make fucking millions if you knew how to get it from Northern California to some of the big population areas like Texas, Florida, and New York. And so I was just like, fuck it.
This is like a Breaking Bad moment.
Yeah.
It's your Walter White moment.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
So, and look, man, listen, but like, just to be real with you, like, it's sad that had to happen to you. You know, it really is. And it's sad. I hate to see that happen to anyone with potential. I hate it when it's like, you could put this person in a car dealership, you can put them in finance, you can put them in insurance, wherever you want. And they're going to succeed, they're going to help people, and they're going to make something of themselves, and they're going to contribute. But to see people with that potential get pushed to do like bad shit when it doesn't have to happen, that's kind of like, that's a bit frustrating. So you walk out.
It's fucking heartbreaking too, man.
It is, man.
And you just feel rejected is ultimately what it is. It's like I fucked up. I can claim it. I was willing to claim it. I was willing to admit that I did wrong, and I was willing to do everything that it took so that I could have my place back in society. And then it just feels like there's just doors slamming. It's just, I'm sorry, I don't want to go fucking work at Kmart and Walmart and 7-Eleven. I want something better for myself. I want to make a contribution.
Well, that's why you find, like, what I've found, a lot of the self-made, like, multi-millionaires we've had on here that have done a little bit of time or have slipped up, it was that fuck up that forced them to succeed as an entrepreneur. Because it's like, well, I don't have a backup plan, and I don't have I don't have anyone to pick me up apart from me. And that's why, like, when you have to pull something off, it's a lot different to when you want to pull something off. So a lot of the successful entrepreneurs that are in, like, your seat on this podcast, it's because it's like there's no backup plan. It's like, I have to succeed. You always do your best work when your back is against the wall. Oh, bro. 100%. And that's the difference between an entrepreneur and a normal person. The entrepreneur knows it and isn't scared to jump into the fire. Oh, dude, I've nearly been bankrupted 3 times. Yeah, yep. That's the difference. But I've survived. One time I had $3 in the bank, and I just every time I'm like the cat with 9 lives. Yep. So okay, so you come out and you say fuck it, and you then say, well, you then start getting into the marijuana trade. Before we go into this one, do you want water? Oh, I got water right here. Yeah, I'm good. Yeah. I'm gonna quickly go right ahead. Wait there 1 sec, because I want to get this part of the story. Dude, this is going really well, by the way. Let's get going. We're getting some good energy. Hey, hell yeah. No, I'm feeling great, man. Love it, man. Love your energy. Thank you. So, yeah, it's called hyperactivity disorder. Okay. Hey, it's a fucking benefit. Yeah, you just gotta find the environment where it's a benefit rather than a strike. It's called weaponized mental illness. There you go. Okay, yeah, fuck yeah. All right. So now we're gonna take the audience into the marijuana trafficking chapter of this life story of yours. Now, granted, this is something that you kind of, your hand was forced into this. You know what? I don't want to say that, because the thing of it is that if you place the blame on things that are external to you, you give them power and you will never have control. Everything that is external to you is a contributing factor. You are ultimately the determining factor. So I do want to go out there and speak for criminal justice reform. I do want to change the external factors so that it is easier for people. But ultimately, the message is still of personal accountability. That's so very nuanced way to look at it. And the thing of it is that that's how you give them power. And I will never give them power over myself again. And the only way you can do that is by saying, I don't give a fuck what's happening on the external world. I will accept responsibility, and I will find the strength, I will find the commitment, whatever the fuck it is, to succeed no matter what they throw at me. And that is why I say that, yes, the system was there. Yes, the system, you know what I mean, put barricades in front of me. But the thing of it is that if there's a fucking barricade there and you break through it, you become stronger and better for it. And I chose to let that barrier
forced me on a massive fucking detour rather than saying, you know what, I will not let them fucking break me. They put another barrier in front of me, I'll fucking smash through it. And so ultimately it was me who made that decision. So they put the barrier in front of me 100%, but I was still capable of even getting over that barrier. And I'm still the one that said, you know what, I choose to give up and I choose to go back down this route again.
There's a very nuanced, very mature and very enlightened way to look at it. Yeah, the one key theme I've noticed throughout your story is accountability, and you seem to take a lot of that.
You have to. That is how you take your power back.
Yep. So
if you're not accountable, you're giving power to things that are outside of you. Yeah, personal accountability is the most empowering thing you can do. And listen to me, it can be a motherfucker.
Oh, bro,
when you have to admit that you've been your own worst enemy all along.
Dude, if I'm not accountable, I go broke.
Yeah.
We don't make money if I'm not accountable. I can't just like make a bad decision, cop a loss.
Yeah.
Complain. I'll be broke.
And
so I have to be.
Yep.
So okay. So you were saying accountability, and you said you dropped that, and it took you down this path. Let's take the audience down the path. How big did the marijuana trafficking get? And talk me through, because basically, for people that don't know, what happened is you got into this next chapter of your life, and then you had a very big target on your head. So let's take the audience through that part of the chapter of your journey.
So within 3 months, I'm making $100,000 profit a month, which seems like good money, but it's never enough. And the reason why it's never enough is because whenever you're using money to be a Band-Aid to heal a wound that it can never heal, it's never going to be enough, and you're always going to want to make more. So I went from making about $100,000 a month to, at my heyday, I was making around $500,000 to $600,000 a month.
Just off weed?
Just off weed. Yep, absolutely.
Isn't it crazy that people are making that legally now?
that was honestly, for Northern California, that was it wasn't small time, but that wasn't anywhere near what people were fucking doing.
What sort of money did you see people making?
Oh, $1 million a week.
With weed?
Yeah, $1 million a week. Absolutely.
Profit.
Cash in their fucking hand, $1 million a week. In Northern California, in what they call the Triangle, Humboldt, Trinity, and Mendocino, there was billions upon billions upon billions of weed grown every fucking year there.
Isn't it crazy that that's now become a legal industry?
Well, not only is it a legal industry,
no,
though.
Legal.
No, I know legal,
yeah.
But they put all of those growers out of business now. The corporations came in. So I remember in 2010 when I was
Capitalism's wild, bro.
Dude, all the growers up there told everyone, vote against legalization. If it becomes legal, what we do is gone. And the first time that California put it up for legalization, they voted it down, and it was all the growers in Northern California because they knew that their entire industry would go away, and that's sure enough what the fuck happened.
Okay,
but
so making $100K a week?
I'm making $100K a week. Within a year, I'm making $500,000 a month. That's going well. And like I said, it's never enough. Although, I mean, it's definitely still a fun lifestyle. The people that I was getting all the weed from, they approached me and they wanted me to traffic for them. So at that point, I was getting my own weed, sending it to New York. I had my own contacts that I was buying it from, my own contacts that I was getting rid of it from. So I had the entire network, transportation, everything. Right. The people that I was getting it from over in California, they saw that I was very successful with transportation. Everybody would always lose loads, they'd always lose money, and I didn't fucking lose anything. So they came to me and they approached me and they said, look, we want to hire you for transportation. Like, you obviously know what you're doing. And it would have been another $500,000 to $600,000 a month. So I'm just like, all right, fuck it. You know, I'm about to double up what I'm making. And the transportation system I was using, though, was maxed. And so I knew that I couldn't get more through that transportation system. And so I had a friend who brokered private jets. And he told me, he's like, hey, let's just go to LA. Let's talk to him. He's very smart. He knows what he's doing. He's been telling me about this for years. So we come to LA, go to the SIS in Beverly Hills, SLS in Beverly Hills. And guy's very professional, very intelligent, very smart. And I'm normally pretty skeptical. And I trusted him. And he was just like, look, all you got to do is wire the money to me. I book the private jet. I tell them what the reason is for, yada, yada, yada. You know, give him the passenger list. He's like, you don't have to do it. He's like, if you do it yourself, you definitely throw up some red flags. You don't have to worry about it. Oakland to Teterboro, New Jersey is a, big executive route, all these fucking things. He wants to make money. So he's convincing me that he knows what he's doing. So it was the very first jet. It was 109 pounds of weed, which at that time was around $300,000 worth of weed. It was a manageable loss. And then the other thing too is 100 pounds. I'm just like, it's fucking California. It'll be probation. It's not the end of the world. It's $300,000. It's 100 pounds, whatever. So I was like, I'll get on the jet. Well, turns out, my luck, the pilot for that chartered jet was a snitch for the DEA.
Really?
Yeah. And so as the
how did they know that you were going to get that jet? Like, how did they?
No, it was just happenstance.
Oh, that was just.
It just so how the DEA works in the United States is whether it's hotels, whether it's private pilots, anywhere where there's drug trafficking taking place, they go and they like DEA agents will reach out to them and say, hey, if you ever see something that's suspicious, if you give us a tip, you get 25% of street value.
No.
Yeah.
No way.
Yeah.
They don't still do that, do they?
Oh, fuck yeah.
So
Dude,
wait, the government will pay you a clip of what they seize.
There's a case in New York City from a hotel clerk seeing something that she thought was suspicious, and she fucking went and told the cops, and it was something like $12 million was in there, and so she was entitled to 25% of that, and she had to fight them in court because they were just like, we'll give you 25%, but come on, 25% of 12 million, you're not getting that, and eventually she fucking won. So anywhere where there's like drug deals that go on, the American DEA will tell people you will get 25% of street value. And it could have changed. I mean, I don't think it has.
How is that even like a possible legal thing?
They're going to give you the incentive.
Yeah, but like, I mean, like, that's almost...
Welcome to America.
I was about to say.
Welcome to America.
It's almost like the government's like a business. Like, it's like a corporate structure crossed with a mafia structure.
So here's what's crazy. Going to Northern California back in the day, there was one way in and one way out, the 101. They called it the gauntlet, right? They wouldn't really hit you coming down where they knew the weed was coming south. They would fucking pull you over going up because they wanted the money. They didn't want the weed. They wanted the fucking money. So it was harder to get the... I mean, granted, running weed down the gauntlet, you had to know what the fuck you were doing. Yeah. But you had to be just as concerned with getting the money up as you were with getting the weed down because they were hitting the traffic as hard as possible going up because they wanted the fucking money.
Wow. Okay, that's something that I've just learned today. I didn't know the government could organize kickbacks for snitches.
Oh yeah, fuck yeah.
Snitch kickbacks.
Whatever incentive it is.
So that jet. So okay, hang on. So that undercover who was...
He was a pilot.
Sorry, he was a pilot.
He was just a snitch for the DEA.
But
so
he could take a clip of whatever gets seized?
Mm-hmm.
That's unbelievable.
Yeah. So he was inside. His DEA handlers were out of the DEA office in San Diego. This was Oakland, California. So he called his DEA handlers in San Diego, and they said, okay, we'll take care of it. Just, take off, register your flight plan, do all that stuff. So we take off. We fly from Oakland to Teterboro, New Jersey. And how it is when you fly into Teterboro, there's different companies that have different hangars. So if you're coming in for a private jet, you can contract services out with them where they'll have their porters come up, unload your plane, put you on a shuttle, get you through the gate to where, your car is waiting for you or something like that. So we land in Teterboro, and we land, and I'm just like, all right, there's no fucking cops. Like, fuck yeah, I made it. Porters come on, unload the containers onto the shuttle, and we start driving around to the front of the fucking hangar, and we go through the gate. And then I just look over and fucking see it. It's just a sea of fucking police cars. And it was Port Authority police cars. So in New York and New Jersey, because it's a lot of the bridges and tunnels and things are both in New York and New Jersey, they have what's called the Port Authority. So those police officers have authority in New York and in New Jersey. And so it was Port Authority. It was Port Authority Police because Teterboro was under the jurisdiction of Port Authority. And it was undercover fucking cars. It was marked cars. I mean, there was like, 20, 30 people standing outside. And I'm just like, fuck. Like, this has to be for me.
Screwed.
Yeah, this has to be for me.
Man, how much weight was on that plane?
109 pounds.
Right.
Yeah, 109 pounds.
How was it stored?
You ever see the containers that they carry like band equipment in?
I was just so
the big fucking black containers.
As soon as you said like I chartered the plane and the pilot was working for the DA, I'm like, what could he have seen that might have tipped him off? And I was literally just thinking of band equipment containers. Mm-hmm. So you had those on the plane. Mm-hmm. And did he know that's what was in them?
No.
So he just assumed.
I mean, if you're going to get 25% of it, who fucking cares? If there's nothing in there, then it's not like the DEA is going to get mad at you.
Bro, this guy sounds
you
like
you might as well. You might as well. If I was a snitch for the DEA and that was my fucking job, if you had a big suitcase, I'd fucking call. You never fucking know.
Do you reckon he made more from snitching than piloting?
Oh, fuck yeah. I mean, you know what though? No, I can't say that because it just depends on how many cases did he come across. Right. Not a lot. I had other friends that were doing it and they wouldn't use the brokerage service. They would have their own jet that they leased, had their own pilots, and they always made sure that where they were taking off from and where they were landing to, they had their own hangar. That was the system. If you did that, you were fine. Randomly, like registering a flight plan, and having the DEA there when you landed, it wasn't, it just wasn't going to happen.
So you load up the plane, the DEA snitches the pilot, he flies you out there, you land, there's a squad of cop cars everywhere. Is this the point at which you said, I'm going to just fucking go on the run?
Well, yeah. So they board the shuttle and start asking me questions, and I answered a few questions, and then I knew that they weren't gonna let me out of it. So I said, am I being detained? In the United States, you have reasonable suspicion and you have probable cause, and so I knew at that point that they didn't have probable cause, and so I asked them, am I being detained? If they don't have probable cause, they can't detain you, and I knew they only had a reasonable suspicion. So the DEA officer says, you're not being detained. I said, okay, fine, I'm free to leave. He goes, yeah, you're free to leave. I said, okay, want to leave. So he starts stalling, like, well, I just need to get your contact information first. But they told me they were going to seize the containers so that they could have a drug dog run around them.
Was it hidden in the containers, or was it like pretty obvious?
No, I mean, it was just big black containers.
No, but like when you open it up, is it just?
Oh yeah, it was fucking obvious. Yeah, there was
was it like in the wall?
Yeah, no, it wasn't like that.
So
it's
you
like
knew
you
the
open
second
it.
they opened those containers.
Oh fuck yeah. Yeah.
Oh man, that must have not been a good feeling.
Well, I mean, at that point, I'm just thinking, okay, I'm not detained. I want to get the fuck out of here. And so I knew my rights. He said, you're not being detained. I said, okay, fine. So I was able to leave. And I remember we walked off the shuttle, and I said one more time, I said in front of everybody, so everybody hears, you do not have the right to detain me, but you do have the right to seize the containers. And he said, yes. I said, okay, fine. I said, it's something for the lawyers to deal with now. And so I go and I get in the SUV, and the driver of the SUV is looking at me like, dude, what the fuck just happened? Because I mean, like I said, it was a sea of fucking cops. And I threw like a couple hundreds up there, and I was like, dude, get into the city as fast as possible. So this was in Jersey. We were right across the river, and I'm just like, get into the fucking city. Because I know they're gonna tail us. They were waiting for a drug dog. And as soon as a drug dog got there, as soon as it would signal, they would have probable cause. Now they can arrest me. And so I was just like, just get into the city as fast as fucking possible. So we get into the city. I jump out of the SUV. I go from like the subway to getting a taxi. And then I had a place where I was staying out in Connecticut, and I had a vehicle there. Yeah. And I found out years later when I got the discovery that I was able to lose them in the city when I got into the taxi because of all the fucking traffic. But at that point, I didn't know it. I thought they were still fucking tailing me. So I remember I was on the way to Connecticut, and I called up my boy, and I said, do not fucking ask a question. Go get the Jeep. Put it behind the fucking tavern, put the keys in the gas tank. He's like, whoa, what? I'm like, dude, fucking do it. Do not ask a fucking single question. He's like, all right, cool. So he does that. I get to Connecticut. I get out of the taxi acting like everything's cool, because at this point I'm still thinking they're tailing me. And I, slowly walk into the tavern, let the door shut behind me, and I just fucking beelined it straight out the back, because I figured if they are fucking tailing me, you have to take a little time to come in. If they don't know that there's cars around back, because it was kind of like a downtown part where you had to know that there was a back door where you had access to cars there. If you've never been there before, you couldn't tell. So I thought that was my fucking escape route. So these people were in the fucking tavern, and they just see me just like running the fuck through, get into the Jeep, take off, right, left, just thinking they're, behind me. Yeah. And they weren't behind me. And then about an hour later, I get a call from the main DEA agent, and he goes, hey, the drug dog showed up, gave us a positive indication. I need you to come turn yourself in. And I'm just like, yeah, I'll be right there. And so I was.
That would not have been a good feeling. Though.
No, fuck no, it wasn't. Fuck no, it wasn't.
Oh man,
yeah.
You must have your stomach must have sunk, like thinking like.
Well, I'm instantly thinking, okay, how the fuck do I get out of the country? I was gonna go to Thailand and buy like the fucking, I don't know if you've ever been there,
Many times.
I've never been. I always wanted to go.
It's very relaxing.
But so they have the boats that go from Phuket to like Phi Phi Don and Phi Phi Lay. They kind of like the like long speed boats that are trying to beat the bigger ferries out there. Yeah. So I was gonna buy 2 of those, hire like a Thai captain to run them, and just be like, fuck it, I'm just gonna go to Thailand and have like a cool fucking business out there and just live fucking life in paradise.
We got a lot of people that have escaped to Thailand.
Okay, yeah.
From as well.
Oh yeah. So
it's a very common escape place.
Yep. So that was the plan. But I didn't do it right away. I was like, you know what? I was like, you know what? I'll just fucking stay over here for a couple years, try to make as much money as possible, and then just turn myself in, hire a good attorney, and try to get out of it that way. Because I wasn't. It's just like, dude, once you've done 5.5 years in fucking prison at 22 years old, like honestly, wasn't scared of going back.
Where did you run to?
I was mainly in Colorado.
Okay.
Yeah, mainly in Colorado.
Weed capital of America.
Oh fuck yeah, yeah,
Wait,
absolutely.
Did you go there to sell more weed?
I went there because I loved it. I snowmobiled.
Yeah.
I do like mountain sledding. So the Rockies over here, 14,000 foot peaks, you know, storms with like 3 feet, 4 feet of fresh powder.
Right.
That's the kind of snowmobiling that I love to do.
So you just wanted to live life while you're on the
Dude,
run.
I mean, it's just like every day is going to be your fucking last.
Wait, you're on the run seems like almost like a work holiday.
Dude, I lived every day like my last. I had everything set up with my network where I really didn't have to do anything. I had people in California. I had people in fucking New York. Like I was just collecting money. Had an off-road fucking race team. I mean, I was in Vegas all the time. Just fucking every day could be your last.
Yeah, you had a pretty relaxed like running period, right?
I mean, it wasn't relaxing. It was every day, you know, seat of your fucking pants. But
Yeah,
it was definitely exhilarating.
Yeah, like,
it
I
was
gotta make the
definitely
most of
exhilarating.
today.
Yeah. And that's what I really didn't understand is that I knew I was running from something, but I wasn't scared of going back to prison. And I knew that I was scared of losing money, but I really didn't understand why I was so scared of losing the money. And it's, you know, lack of belief in yourself. I mean, I've always had the ability to create wealth and create money. But really what I understood is that I was running from the reality of myself. I was running from that dark night of the soul where you're going to lose everything. You're going to experience total fucking annihilation. And you're going to have to face all your demons and all the lies and all the bullshit that you fucking built up around yourself.
I want to touch on that next because this is a very important part of your story, and it's one that resonates with me because I've gone through that twice. And it's, yeah, man, you learn a lot about yourself when you're at your lowest and when you have...
Total annihilation. Rock bottom doesn't describe it. It's
remember,
total annihilation.
I'll just quickly touch on this briefly, but I remember I lost everything in one go. We got ripped off by a client, and I had like $2 in the bank. And I remember...
Wow.
I was so broke. I'm like, oh, maybe I'll just off myself. I'm like, hang on, I can't even afford a rope. I'm like, I can't afford to die. I'm like, I'm too broke to even be dead. And then at that point, I was like, you know what? I'm just going to have to hustle. Glued the phone to my hand, made it all back. We'll get into that later.
Okay.
But it ties into your concept of the dark night of the soul. Some people call it the ego death. Some people call it the rebirth. Some people call it the realization period. But at its core, it's like your turnaround point. So we're going to get to that.
Okay.
But I want to take people through because when you're on the run, people might not know. This is where it becomes a little bit like a movie, really, because you had one dude on your tail and he hated you.
Yeah, it was one.
Tell me about how much you love that guy.
You know what? I do not agree with what he did as far as the treatment of my family. It was
What did he do to your family?
He told them, my mother is the nicest woman you'll ever meet in the fucking world. And I'm not just saying that 'cause she's my mother. I mean, she really is like the sweetest person in the world. She has Parkinson's. And at that point, you know what I mean? The Parkinson's was definitely affecting her. There's a lot of issues with my father. Like the last words I said to him was, "You're fucking dead to me." It's, you know, it's like ultimate betrayal, things like that.
I remember that.
Yeah. So, you know, my mom, like I said, I don't understand how anybody could be mean to my fucking mother. Like if you're mean to my mother, you are a special kind of fucking asshole. And not only did he lie to them, harass them, and definitely treat them in a very inhumane and unprofessional manner, but he told my mother, he, you know, very much implied it as much as he could, that he was going to kill me in the field unless she told him where I was. And the thing of it is that I had no contact with them for the full fucking 3 years. They did not know where I was at. I said, I'm not going to bring them into this. I am not going to put them in the position where they would have to break the law to fucking protect me. And so I stayed away from them for 3 years. So they were fucking innocent. They did not know where I was at. And I'm sorry, their treatment is fucking inexcusable.
What did he say to your mom to imply that he was going to whack you?
He was like, you know, things happen in the field, you know, fingers slip, people end up dead, you know, it's just kind of preventable. So, you know, if you tell me where he's at, you know, it'll be a lot safer. I can make sure that those things don't happen. But if you don't tell me, you know, it's looking like it's going to happen. I mean, things like that. And my mother and my sister, they are fucking honest people. They are not fucking liars. They are not fucking liars. In the way, like my sister would still cry about it. My mother would still fucking cry about it. And it's just for 109 pounds of weed. And there's a famous quote that I always think about Nietzsche. And it says, beware when you chase monsters, lest you become one yourself.
That's a really good one. I like that one.
And that's the reality, is that it's like San Francisco is a perfect example. San Francisco used to be a very tolerant place. And in their pursuit to eradicate intolerance, it became the most intolerant place in the fucking United States right now. It's the irony of it.
Do you know what's so crazy about that saying? Because I remember I just told you about how he got ripped off. And I was like, we had an opportunity because we found that guy. And I could have got the money back. But what I would have had to have done to get it back, I'm like, oh, man, do I really want to go down this path?
Yep.
And I was like, I actually said, you know what? I'm just going to lock in. I'm just going to make it all back because I didn't want to kind of get down into the gutter with him.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Uh-huh.
And so, but that was one of the best choices I made because, you don't, that's a really good saying, man.
Yeah.
Okay, so this guy's chasing you. He's pressuring you.
Yeah, I'm Northern California's top 10 most wanted. He literally created the Northern California's top 10 most wanted list to get more money and more agents on my fucking case.
Which department was he from?
U.S. Marshals,
right.
Northern California, San Francisco office.
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
So my face was on billboards all in Northern California.
For selling weed.
Yep. When they came out with the list, I don't know if you know about Alcatraz, the famous prison.
I do.
There were 3 famous guys that escaped from there that they never found. And they don't know if they escaped. They don't know if they died in the bay. And so they've been on, like a fucking...
Wait, Alcatraz isn't the one in the middle of the water, is it?
In San Francisco. Yeah. In San Francisco.
I didn't think anyone had ever escaped from there.
Well, they don't know if they escaped. They don't know if they died in the bay. But three famous inmates got out, and they don't know where their bodies are. So they've been on a wanted list since the fucking 1960s. So the Northern California top 10 most wanted list comes out. I don't know their names, but if you like Google like Alcatraz, yeah. So the first Northern California top 10 most wanted list are those 3 notorious fucking inmates, 6 murderers, and then me. And it was all over the local news. And so people went and looked at it because, it just came out in the local news. And then there was all this backlash, people calling up the local news. What the fuck is a guy doing on this list for 109 pounds of weed? And I remember I had friends, like my one friend, she was driving with her dad to downtown Oakland, and she's just sitting there talking to her dad. He's driving, looking out, talking to her dad, and then she's just like, it was like, she couldn't talk, and her dad's like, "Are you okay? Are you choking?" And she's like, and she's fucking there. I was. She's on a fucking billboard.
So which state did they have the list published in?
In Northern California.
Right, but you were living in Colorado.
Yep.
Okay, so you had friends from home calling you up, going, "Hey, you're famous."
Well,
on the most wanted list now.
I was still doing work out of San Francisco. Yeah,
right.
I was still in and out of here. Right. Yeah, I was still in and out of here.
Is that playing it a bit dangerous though?
Oh fuck yeah. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, I mean it was, but I mean it's just you had to fucking do it.
All right. So the next one I want to go into, I'm gonna quickly run to the bathroom.
Go right ahead.
But when we get back, the next one I want to get into is the point at which he gets you and what happens after that.
Okay.
Sound good?
Yeah. Hell yeah.
By the way, just we blasted an hour.
Oh, I know.
Felt like it's been 5 minutes.
Dude, I think we blasted over an hour because we started at like fucking 11:15, I think. Yeah, it's been like an hour and a half. There any big shows that record out of here regularly?
Yeah.
I mean, I've definitely heard of the place before. There's a lot of people that use it.
Yeah. So
yeah.
Basically, we got one of the co-creator for Chappelle Show. He comes in.
Okay,
here,
that's cool.
Pretty much brings like the biggest stars.
Okay.
Marlon Wayans, Bill Burr.
Okay, that's cool.
Blake Griffin's come through here.
Okay.
But one of the biggest podcasts we have here is called Girls Gone Bible. They're like a Christian base.
I don't think I've heard of that.
Yeah, they're blowing
Yeah.
up right now.
Are they really?
They're even doing like live tours.
Okay. Well, yeah, it's crazy how the pendulum goes. It's like the pendulum was so far fucking left. Now it's cool to, be back right now.
Yeah, it's wild, bro. It really
Especially in a place like LA. You know what I mean? Like Girls Gone Bible in a place like LA, you'd think like, oh.
Great name too.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like, especially just like,
Oh, fuck yeah. Dude, that's what I learned with my meal prep business. It was all in the name. So the ketogenic diet was very popular, and we call it ketoned bodies. And people just fucking loved it. And then after that, we had like some bigger people come along and help us with branding. They were like, just call it ketoned. Because it's like you get a toned body, but it's just like, no, I'm ketoned. And it's just in the fucking name.
You got a cool story too, bro.
Oh, thank you. Little wild, yeah. Definitely been entertaining.
Yeah, definitely. No, definitely. I've been one of these,
Yeah.
honestly, since I've been here. So.
Okay.
Yeah. So.
I mean, wait till the dude Owen tomorrow, man.
Yeah.
And then
I
the
won't be here tomorrow.
dude that he's fucking going to interview in Florida.
Yeah.
Literally Pablo Escobar's main fucking pilot, like set up. Yeah. Yeah.
So 22 minutes.
Okay, cool.
I'll give you like a 5 or.
Okay.
Yeah, no, sorry, I was a little on it. I'm getting good at this stuff, Jesse. All right, so the next chapters I want to take people through are twofold. So I'm going to take, I want you and I to take them through the getting caught chapter, and then the second stint in prison chapter, and then the rebirth chapter.
Okay.
So let's go through the getting caught.
Okay. So I getting caught again. Yeah. So I was on the run. I knew they were on to me. I was just done running. My mother had Parkinson's. I hadn't seen her in 3 years. Like I said, the last words I said to my father were, you're dead to me. And I was just concerned that my mother would pass away while I was on the run. And I just thought, you know, at the very least, I don't give a fuck. I have to go back and do 10, 20 years. She doesn't deserve that, you know, to not get to say goodbye to her son before she passes. So I was done. They had done some things where they kind of blew their cover, where I knew they were on to me. I already had another identity. I easily could have, you know, slipped off into the darkness again. But I was actually working on my off-road race vehicle, and they came up, fucking task force, submachine guns, all that good shit, Denver, Colorado. And it was a friend of mine who was involved in the Shrimp Boy Chow case in San Francisco, which is a really, really big fucking case. The U.S. Marshal who was after me, they forced him to give my case back to New Jersey, because my case was actually out of the New York, New Jersey U.S. Marshal's office, but because I was from California, they sent it over to the Northern California's office. But he was making no progress, and so his boss forced him to give it back to fucking New Jersey, because they don't want a case on their docket that they're not making any progress with. So my case wasn't even one of his active cases anymore. He's in a courtroom on an unrelated case, and they were bringing some of the people that were involved in the Shrimp Boy Chow case, and he hears my friend's name. And my friend's name is just very, very unique, and he instantly, because I read all of this, it's so fucking crazy, is I got all of it in the fucking discovery, exactly how they fucking called me. And so he heard my friend's name, and he just was like, wait a minute, that's an associate of Calcott's. And so he goes up there and he asks the prosecutor, and he's like, hey, what's that guy here for? And she goes, oh, he's a big, you know, weed trafficker. They go back and forth between New York and California. He's just involved in the Shrimp Boy Chow case, you know, low level, like money laundering stuff. And he asked for a copy of the indictment, and he gets a copy of the indictment. And there's one fucking place where the undercover FBI agent was talking to two of my friends that were involved in that case. And there's one fucking part where they both mention a BRYAN. And so he reads that entire fucking indictment, reads the part where, you know, they mention a BRYAN, and he goes, I know that's fucking Calcott. Yeah. And so one of the DEA agents that was on the fugitive task force with him, he had him take out a new DEA number on me, and they did that so that they could bill all of the expenses. They immediately flew to New York, interviewed both of my friends that were involved in that fucking case. They instantly told them where the fuck I was. The joke is they had to slap him once to get him to talk. They had to slap him twice to get him to shut up.
That's mad. I love that.
It's called a 3-slap confession. And it's crazy too, because one of them got pissed off and went on a fucking podcast after I told that story. And he said, he's like, I'll give $100,000 to anybody that can prove I'm a fucking snitch. I texted the fucking podcast host right away, and I said, I have the DEA paperwork. I'll fucking bring it to you. Let's get the $100,000 and donate it to a fucking prison charity. Never fucking heard anything about it. 'Cause I'm like, I don't want fucking money from that dude. But if you're gonna sit there, like, I was your friend, I bailed you out, got you a fucking attorney for the fucking Shrimp Boy Chow case. I never fucking did anything wrong to you. You know what I mean? It's like, you did it. At least be a fucking man and stand up and say you fucking did it. I could at least respect you.
Yeah, but not everyone has that integrity.
No, I know. But the crazy thing is like, it's a DEA it's a U.S. Marshal report written by the fucking main U.S. Marshal was after me. It was part of my fucking discovery. Like, I have it, both of their names, not redacted, nothing.
So which state ended up getting your case?
Well, so the feds didn't want it because it was marijuana. So it was a New Jersey fucking state case.
Right. So you get prosecuted in New Jersey state.
And so they brought me back from Colorado to New Jersey. I was on an ankle monitor for 3.5 fucking years. They wouldn't let me go. My bail at first was $1 million. Finally got it down to $350,000. Made the fucking bail on $350,000. It was on an ankle monitor for 3.5 years. And that was actually when I started my first legal business. We were the first ketogenic meal prep business in the fucking country. We did.
You started this whilst on bail?
While I was on fucking bail for this fucking case. I
love this part.
Yeah. We did $2 million in revenue our first year in business, completely and totally bootstrapped it with no fucking startup capital, just slowly built it. And in less than 10 months, I was sitting in the Goodwin and Proctor building in New York City. They told me it was a $100 million to $1 billion fucking idea.
Can I tell the audience something about this as well?
Yeah, go right ahead.
Because you were passionate about this business, and I recall you saying in one of your interviews, you specifically said, I'm passionate about this business because people put this ketogenic food in their body who are going through things such as chemo and cancer, and to you,
they were eating our food to stay alive.
Correct. And to you were most passionate about this because you created something that people put in their body that they see as a vital part of their recovery process, and that's why you were so passionate about the best ingredients for that business. And that was something you were really proud of, right?
Absolutely. Well, I started the business because my mother had Parkinson's.
That's right.
Yeah.
And so but again, so you get prosecuted, you're on bail, you've got an ankle monitor, you start this business, it takes off, becomes really successful, and then you hit another snag again with this business because of the past convictions.
Yep.
And that was what was that snag?
So the law firm Goodwin and Proctor, they found out about the case and they dropped me from the program. So they literally had me there, and I'm not exaggerating.
When you say program, that was like a business accelerator.
It was a business accelerator program. The woman, I remember I was in the fucking building. It's a New York Times building in New York City. I forget what floor they're on, but they have one of the floors in the New York Times building. And I'm just sitting there with 2 attorneys that have done multiple billion-dollar deals. The guy who got me into that program, he had his own fund at like 32 years old that he was managing something like $300 million worth of money. And I don't really give a fuck about the money, but it still was just like, fuck, dude. Like, I did this on bail. Yeah. And it was just like, this was like 10 months after I started this fucking business. And I'm sitting here in this building with these attorneys, these fucking calibers. And I was proud of myself again, like, motherfucker, I did it. And not only was it just like, I did it, but I was like, I fucking did it. And it's related to people's health. One of the most memorable moments I had in my life was one of our customers called me up. She was crying. And I'm just like, fuck, did I get her sick? Like, cause I knew she had cancer. I knew she was going through chemo. And she had just left her oncologist, and her oncologist told her that she was in remission and she didn't have to do any more chemo. And she was fucking crying to call me up and share that fucking moment with me to let me know that, like, you know, I was a part of fucking potentially saving her fucking life.
Do you know what's so weird? When I started our CBD oil business out here, we would have people that would call up with similar stories like, I've got pain relief. I use your creams on my
it fucking feels amazing.
It does feel amazing, man. I don't think people understand how good it feels. Even if you have 100,000 customers and you just change one customer's life, it does feel good.
It does.
And what happened to that business?
So what happens in businesses like that when there's massive fucking growth is that you're either going to take the money or they're going to give the money to your competition. They're going to create their own fucking business, do something like that. So we were still doing $150,000, $180,000 a month. I had to turn myself in. I had to do 18 months in prison.
Oh, is that why you lost it? Oh, bro, I'm sorry. That's horrible.
Yeah.
I couldn't imagine having to walk away from a business to go to do 18 months.
Yep. And it's crazy too, because we were doing that much. I knew our numbers inside and out. We had 1,500 unique visitors a day to the website. And we were doing $2 million a year in rev. And that was with a shitty website, no subscription software. If we just would have had a better website and subscription software, our first year in business, we would have done $6 million in sales. The very next day after they stopped selling meals, once I turned myself in, our website traffic went from 1,500 unique visitors a day to 7,500. So it 5x'd. So that potentially in that second year in business would have done $30 million in revenue. So if it would have gotten a 10x fucking multiple, it means that the first legal business I started potentially would have been worth $300 million the second fucking year in.
Man, but you had to walk away from it to go to jail.
But you know what though? I wasn't ready for the success and the money at that point because I had to go through that dark night of the soul.
So let's talk about this part because this is important. And this is where...
This is where the redemption, like,
is.
Yeah.
And just so you know, we've just fucking blasted an hour and 45 minutes.
Yeah.
Do you know that?
Yeah.
Feels like it's been 3 seconds.
My father was a pastor. If there's one thing he taught me how to do, it's fucking talk.
I was just born. I can't shut the fuck up either. I think that's why.
Don't get us in a room together.
No, listen, we could. I said at the start we could probably sit here for 10 hours.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
We would turn the cameras off and just fucking sit here and talk shit.
Absolutely.
Okay, no, but this is the important part of the chapter, and I'm glad we're at this part now because we've just blasted time like it's going out of fashion. So you had to walk away from this huge business, you go into jail, and then you have this kind of, so you call it dark night of the soul, I call it like a rebirthing process, but like that's the process where you've lost everything and you kind of now have to become this new person, and you have to face all your demons, you have to look at like, you know, the type of person you were, who you became, and who you are now. Talk me through what it's like when you're sitting there, you've lost everything, and you go through this like rebirthing process, and you become the new version of Brian that's sitting across from me now. That was well said, by the way.
So
I was pleased with that.
I like it. Well, I remember it was going into court, getting put in cuffs, was in the county jail for about a week. They bring you down to what's called CRAF in New Jersey, which is their central receiving and whatever it is, something processing center. I forget what CRAF stands for, but it's an acronym. And it is a prison from the early 1900s. It is fucking disgusting. It is foul. Like, I can't even describe just how utterly depressing. I mean, if there's one fucking scene that'll just crush the human spirit, it's that fucking prison in New Jersey. And they put you in this cell, and they don't tell you when you're going to get let out of the cell, because this is the first part of it. You're being processed. Completely and totally different from the federal prison system. This is fucking inhumane. This is barbaric. And I remember just literally not being able to move, just in the fetal position on the fucking bunk, just thinking like it's all fucking gone. it's all gone. The girl's gone, the money's gone, like everything, like it's fucking gone. That's why I call it like total annihilation. And in that moment, you're stripped of your defense mechanisms, all the bullshit that you fed yourself for years and years on end, all those Band-Aids, it's all fucking gone. And your wounds, your core issues, your fucking core mistakes, it's all right there. And you have to face the reality of yourself, and you have to accept it, that you have been your own worst enemy all along. And that is something that is fucking scary. It's like I tell people, like, look, I wish I could sugarcoat it and say, oh, it's really not that bad. It is that fucking bad. It's fucking horrible. But it's what you have to go through to really recognize the folly of your ways. And I'm not a religious person, but when you read a lot of stuff about going through a dark night of the soul, they say you encounter God.
Well, can I show you something?
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah, I got that after I went through mine.
Really? Okay.
Yeah,
awesome.
Because I felt like I had a guardian angel, so I just got that because like, I don't know how else to show gratitude. That's just what I have.
Yeah. It's definitely sticks. And like I said, how you define God, whatever you want to call it, when you're in that dark night of the soul, you encounter, whether you want to call it God, whether you want to call it the creator, whether you want to call it the universe, that's what you encounter. And it's ultimately what consciousness really is, and the power that you have as a human being. And so what I recognized is that all along I was looking for external sources of validation. I was trying to change my external world so that it would feed me what I wanted it. And all along, I was looking for reasons to love myself. I was looking for reasons to respect myself. And if you're looking for those reasons, you're never going to find them. Doesn't matter how much money you make. Doesn't matter what the fuck you do. You're never going to encounter them. So when you go through that dark night of the soul and you experience total annihilation, the only thing you're left with is your choice. And I remember one of the definitions in philosophy class of God that comes from Aristotle is an uncaused cause or an unmoved moved. And when you're in that dark night of the soul experience and the only thing you have left is your choice, you have to become that uncaused cause. There's no reason to love yourself. There's no justification to love yourself, but yet you can still choose to do so. And when you do that, you are taking an active role in your creation, and you stop being a creation and you start becoming a creator. And that's how you fully accept responsibility. And you say, it doesn't matter what's happened to me in my life. It doesn't matter what's going on in the external world. I choose to fucking love myself. And that's when you start putting that true positive energy into the world, and you start to realize that the universe is a mirror, and anything that you put out will start to reflect back. So you're still concerned on what the universe is giving back to you, but you understand that you are responsible first for what goes out. And you become responsible for that when you recognize the power of choice and recognize your ability to be that uncaused cause, that unmoved moved, and say, I choose to love myself, I choose to respect myself, I choose to forgive myself, I also choose to hold myself accountable. And that is how you tap into that like self-empowerment, and you start, and not only that though, but it's then at that point, the identity that you create for yourself out of love that you've chosen, not been given, but out of love that you've chosen, out of love for yourself that you've created, the identity that comes after that, that is truly who you are. It is not something that the world has given you. It is something that you have created. And that is the paradigm shift that has been unbelievably powerful with me. Mm-hmm. But you also have to understand is that you are dealing with neuroplasticity and biology. Yeah. You have that realization, but you have to work on that every day, and you become more and more of that creator every day. You do have that one kind of moment where, you know what I mean, you fucking experience God, whatever the hell you want to call it. Yeah. But you do have to take an active role in your creation and your existence every single day.
Wow, man, that was powerful. Do you feel like you're there now? You're at that point now?
It's a process. Like they say, if you're not growing, you're dying.
That's true.
You understand? And it's just like, I don't want to reach the peak until, you know what I mean, until it's time to go. Because if I reach this peak, I'm going to look over at that next mountain and say, well, I want to go climb that fucking mountain.
Yeah, no, I know what you mean, man. They call that a snake chasing its tail.
Yeah.
But so you feel like you got to, it's also interesting though, because it's almost like you're talking about like you learn to like love and accept yourself at your lowest point.
Well,
which makes it probably more powerful.
At your lowest point, you have nothing else but your choice. That's where the real power comes in.
But isn't it fascinating how you specifically, you, not everyone was going to talk about you now, but you learned to love and appreciate yourself, not at your peak, but at your lowest. That's pretty powerful, man.
Well, you learn to create yourself, is what it is.
Yeah, yeah. Because most people, they only want to pat themselves on the back at the top. Most people don't realize you only really do get true appreciation at the bottom. fuck, that's a powerful
when
lesson.
there's nothing else. And I mean, it's sad because you look at so many people that have money who have all these material possessions, and they fucking hate themselves.
Dude, I know, it's funny you mentioned that.
They literally hate themselves.
We have blasted through this thing. This has been a fantastic podcast. No, yeah, on that point, I've seen like, I've read stories about successful people who like off themselves at the top versus people who rebuild themselves at the bottom. And it is the more sad and depressed ones at the top. And I feel like the people who succeed most up here have to have been down 100%. At the bottom. And everyone I know that's worth 100 million, a billion, all my big ballers who won't even come on these fucking podcasts because they got too much money. They don't want anyone to know who the fuck they are. But they've been down in the gutter where I've been, where you've been. And I think if you haven't experienced the gutter, you can't appreciate the penthouse. So that was a good one as well.
Yeah.
So we've got 4 minutes left. And listen, dude, this has been fantastic. I knew it was going to be good. I just didn't know we are going to get this much done. Like, we've covered some ground, man, and you've really shared some vulnerable things. So I appreciate that.
Of course.
You know, you're out there putting your personal profile out there now. It's been a real honor and a privilege to get to know you. You know, what message do you want to put out there, and what do you want to be remembered for? It's a profound question, I know.
Yeah. So I said this on Soft White Underbelly, where, you know, if you've been through some type of, you know, you were molested as a kid, you've been through sexual assault, you know, it's something that was external that truly wasn't your fault, that's negatively impacted you. I don't know how my story can help you. But if you wake up one day and you look in the mirror and you realize like you've been your own fucking worst enemy all along, that's what my story is really about. And when you realize that, you have to learn how to love yourself in the forgiveness, holding yourself accountable all at the same time. And it seems like you have to do all of these things that are counter, but that's really what it is. It's you accept yourself, you forgive yourself, but you also say you're going to hold yourself accountable. And the one thing you have to remember, and this is not my saying, I can't take credibility for it, I've heard it elsewhere, is that you can never hate yourself into loving yourself, is ultimately what it comes down to. And you're going to reach a point where there's no fucking reason to love yourself. There's no external justification, no external fucking cause. It doesn't matter. You can still choose to fucking do so. And once you choose to do that, that is the foundation, that is the building blocks upon which all of your success is going to be founded upon. So if you're in that low fucking point, there's a reason why you are putting yourself in that situation, because you are trying to teach yourself that fucking lesson.
Bro, I got to tell you, you've been one of the most self-aware and accountable guests we've had on the podcast. It's been an absolute privilege, and I feel like when I'm back in town before the end of the year, we should probably even do a second one. What do you think?
Whatever you want.
Brian Calcott,
anytime, man.
absolute pleasure. Thank you for coming on the podcast.
Thank you for having me.
Ladies and gentlemen, thank you for being with us.